Good evening. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer in the studio, and calling from near Los Angeles is Richard Munchkin. Good evening, Richard.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Tonight, later, our guest is going to be Michael Kaplan, who is a gambling writer for Cigar Aficionado magazine, which means he writes about lots and lots and lots of different forms of gambling. So it's an interesting story. He's a guy that we're probably going to be having on more than once because he's written about so many different areas of gambling. There's been some poker news in the news recently. Danny Negreanu isn't a big fan of Annie Duke. What happened there?
Well, this has been going on for quite a long time. The feud between the two of them. The nominees for the Poker Hall of Fame came out, and there are 10 nominees. Annie Duke is one of the people nominated. Daniel is not eligible to be nominated because apparently there's a rule that you have to be a minimum of 40 years old. And
his day will come.
Yeah, yes, his day will come. But anyway, so he, said some not very nice things at all about Annie Duke, and her brother Howard Lederer said, they more should be in the Poker Hall of Shame than the Hall of Fame, and got pretty nasty. I mean, said, why should she be in there for robbing people at Ultimate Bet? And he says that she owed Russ Hamilton money that she never paid back. I mean, it really got kind of catty.
Daniel Negreanu is known as a friendly guy. Everybody likes him. Why does he have a bug up his ass about Annie?
I don't know, and when we have him on the show, that's what we'll ask him about.
Oh, good. Okay. Let's hope he keeps it G-rated for the radio.
Right. But yeah, there's no love lost there. So,
so there was a card room called Doyle's Room, which was an internet poker site that during Black Friday, April 15th, there were a couple other sites mentioned. And a week or so later, 10 sites, including Doyle's Room, got indicted. And so Doyle apparently had his fill of it, but that's in the news again. What's happening?
Well, now he has said he is terminating his endorsement contract with them. So the room, the poker site, believes that they have the right to market that name, Doyle's Room, and use his name and likeness for some period of time. But Doyle has asked them to stop. And so they are changing. The name of the room is now going to be called americascardroom.eu.
Americascardroom.eu. So like EU as in Europe.
Yes, exactly. So nothing says America's Card Room like the .eu at the end of that.
Wow.
But, so they are rebranding it, and so his name will no longer be on it.
Well, which is good. You don't want to... he's kind of an icon out there. And
yeah, he doesn't need the legal hassles.
More people. Okay, good. So, in other news, last week the House Judiciary Committee passed a law that basically say anything that is illegal in this country, if you go to another country and do that illegal act, even if it's legal in that other country, you come back to the United States and you're facing potential legal problems.
Yeah, this is bizarre. I mean, how they could pass this. Now, this is not a law yet, correct? This was just added to an existing bill, but it hasn't been voted on yet. Is that right?
As I'm reading something datelined October 8th, it says the House Judiciary Committee approved a bill to amend the Controlled Substances Act. So Controlled Substances Act would be dealing with drugs. So apparently they were thinking about the war on drugs when they came up with this law.
Right, but they failed to think about the unintended consequences. So I know quite a few poker players who moved to either Canada or Mexico. I know a sports bettor who moved all of his operations to the UK. And, if this law were to pass, all these people would be breaking the law. Now, how they would enforce this law, I mean, how are they going to know what you do in another country?
I'm not sure. And basically, they don't seem to be prosecuting internet gamblers. I mean, it's against the law to do it, but basically players are not being prosecuted so far.
So far. Although I don't know if that's true in Washington State.
Washington State makes it...
That's a state law up there that they, 6 years ago or something, made it illegal to gamble on the internet.
So in your opinion, would this be something that gamblers should worry about?
I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, if I were moving to Canada to play poker, I wouldn't be concerned about this.
Okay, good. If you're not worried about it, I'm not going to worry about it either. So, I want to do one of our commercials first for the South Point, but this kind of ties in because it does relate to poker. So let me talk about that, and then we'll discuss how it affects poker, and then we'll talk to Michael Kaplan.
Okay.
The South Point has more than 10,000 video poker games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anybody else. Now, the South Point has free online poker tournaments starting this Monday, October 17th. They're daily contests with 2 on Saturday and Sunday, and so the 9 winners of those contests come to a single table tournament on a Saturday where the winner gets $10,000. Gets a $10,000 seat in next year's World Series of Poker main event. Now, in addition, so this is a free, mostly free. I went and looked at the site. There are hundreds of daily tournaments. If you want to start at 12:02 in a tournament, you can, or 12:04, or 12:10, or 12:12, or 12 all day long. And some are free. Some charges you 100 points. A 100 slot club points has a value of 30 cents. The highest one I saw was 500 points, which is $1.50. Sometimes there are small prizes of $25, sometimes larger. So anyway, that's happening now at the South Point. You can register at southpointpoker.com, and it's going to start this Monday for those of you who are poker players. Double points in October will be happening on Halloween, midnight to midnight. And this week's class on Wednesday is Bonus Deuces Wild, the 944 version. I was originally scheduled to teach that class 3 weeks ago, but I had a senior moment and accidentally taught double Bonus Deuces Wild on that day, and so we kind of switched them around. So if you're coming this Wednesday at 1 o'clock, it is double bonus. It is Deuces Wild bonus. All right, Munchkin. On this, what do you think about the South Point having free online tournaments?
I think all of the I know both Harris and MGM are trying to get into this as well. Everybody knows that internet poker is going to be legalized probably within the next year, and it'll happen on a state by state basis. I expect that California and Nevada will be 2 of the earliest states to adopt it. So everybody wants to jump into this business, and so they're getting ready by doing this, getting the free sites going, ironing the bugs out of the software, so that the day the law passes, they'll be able to flip a switch and start vacuuming up money, basically.
Okay, so the current South Point poker tournaments are guaranteed to keep going at least until January. Whether they continue it after that or not is unknown at this point. But your opinion is it's mostly to get the bugs out of it so that when it is legal for them to be raking in the money at this, they get the jump on other people.
Not just to get the bugs out of it, but to build their database of players if they have players that are already accustomed to coming to their site as opposed to somebody else's, they want to get their players acclimated to the site and get their hooks into the players as well.
I guess the South Point is guaranteed $100,000. They're giving away $100,000 a month, and which seems like an awful lot when they're collecting it at 30 cents at a time and $1.50 at a time and stuff.
Well, but they may be getting some advertising. They may be, some of that $100,000. Is that all cash, or does that room giveaways and free buffets and things like that? I don't know if that's all cash.
I don't know either. But that's interesting. Okay.
But still, for online poker, I mean, that is pennies. I mean, when this gets legalized, I mean, they'll be bringing in millions of dollars a month.
Mm-hmm. So I've actually been reading a lot of poker books for our guests along the way, and including Ed Miller next week. And so, who knows? I may start playing online internet poker, and so now I can do it for free or small amounts and legally. And so that sounds. I might go for it.
I will probably sign up as well. So that we can talk about it, more intelligently when we talk about it. But also, online. I was very involved in online play back before 2006 when the Unlawful Internet Gaming Enforcement Act was passed.
Mm-hmm.
And they will be giving away a lot of money when things start and they're trying to attract customers. They will be giving away a lot of free bonus money to people. So it would be a good idea to sign up for these things. Create maybe a separate email address that you don't mind getting a lot of spam in it. And I plan to sign up for all of these places.
So you sign up even before they're giving away these bonuses.
Sure.
So they will. You predict they're going to be giving their bonuses to existing players rather than just new players.
I think they'll be giving them to new players as well, but you'll hear about it earlier if you're already signed up because you'll be getting their emails.
Very good.
Maybe it'll be more for existing. Hard to know, but it costs you nothing to sign up. So.
All right. We have Michael Kaplan on the phone. So, Richard, why don't you tell us who Michael Kaplan is and why is he calling us?
Okay. Michael Kaplan is a writer. He's written for dozens of different magazines, probably every magazine you can think of, from Playboy to Maxim to Wired to GQ. He's written for the New York Times. He's written 4 books, and one of them is an excellent poker book called Aces and Kings. It's not a how-to poker book. It's a profiles of lots and lots of different players. He sort of hung out at the World Series of Poker, I think, in 03 or 04, and with another writer, they pestered all the poker players into sitting down and giving them interviews. But he's also, mostly why he's here tonight, is he is the gambling writer for Cigar Aficionado magazine, and in writing these gambling articles, he has been sucked into the world of advantage play gambling and become an advantage player himself.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, so Michael Kaplan, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Hey, how are you guys?
Well, we're glad you're here.
Quick question, though. So the South Point, is that only for Nevada residents, or is that for anybody?
I believe it's for anybody right now, the free stuff.
Wow. And so you play for free, and they're giving away prizes.
Yeah, the big prize is 9 people a week will qualify for a final table, and the winner of that table gets a $10,000 entry into next year's World Series of Poker main event.
It's not too bad.
But you have to put in
a lot of hours though playing.
Well, you have to show up at the final table like 3 weeks on a Saturday, 3 weeks after you qualified
you have
for
to play
it.
That final table live.
Yeah, the final table is live, and now if you're back in Philadelphia or somewhere else, that might be a schlep to get there. But
Sounds sounds interesting, nevertheless.
So actually, I think that's a good jumping off point. You, Michael, through your writing, you met somebody who actually taught you how to play poker, and you became a winning poker player online. Right?
Yeah, it's funny because I was like this guy. I'd hung out with all these poker players, and I was just terrible. I mean, I was not a winning poker player. I hardly ever played poker. Occasionally, I play in the casinos. I'd either get lucky and win a little bit, but I'd usually lose. I play online a little bit, and I don't think I even played online. I think I just was like, well, whatever. I write about poker. I'm never going to be able to make money playing it. It's too hard. And then I met this guy Nick Rainey through another player, and this guy really taught himself how to beat the what he really taught himself how to do was beat the 90-man tournaments on full tilt, and he offered to teach me how to do it.
Wait, I'm sorry. But wait. 99 tournaments?
No.
They're
90-man tournaments on full tilt. It's with 90 players. These 90-player tournaments. They're like these 90 players sit and goes.
Oh, okay.
So I spent a week at his house. I wound up writing about it, and he showed me how to do it. It's like shoving in with hands that I never would have had the guts to shove in with. And when I didn't shove with it, he'd say, "You're a pussy. You're wearing a dress." He'd just say horrible. He'd say all this stuff to me, and it was weird though because it was.
And being
hard
insulted like this destroyed you. So in the process, you learned how to play good poker, so he wouldn't insult you anymore.
Yeah, yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I can take it. I mean, I've had a lot of people say nasty things to me, so I mean, it doesn't. Like through the course of running, I've had people not be that nice to me. So I mean, I have a thick skin.
We all have, yes.
So, but he was
like Marine boot camp of poker.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was exactly like that. I mean, he berated me in front of his girlfriend the first couple nights. I mean, it was really rough. But this guy was a friend of mine.
Now, how long did it take you to actually learn to do this?
Okay, here's what happened. I spent a week with him. When I was with him, at the end of that week, I was playing properly. I was
How
winning.
many hours a day during that week were you?
I mean, this guy would play for 12, 14 hours a day. I would be there for maybe 8, 10 hours a day.
Wow.
And he,
But
he was
40 hours of instruction and becoming a winning player sounds like pretty world record time.
Yeah,
It usually
this
takes
guy,
longer than this.
Yeah, I mean, but he before that he was instructing me a little bit at home when I was playing. He'd be watching me play and be giving me some advice. But that's not the same thing as me playing alone, you know what I mean, and him telling me what to do. So, but he goes to me, he goes, look, you did pretty well while I was here watching you. He goes, but when guys leave, because he's taught other people. He goes, when guys leave here and they're playing on their own and they've got that king 5 and they've got 9 big blinds, they might not find it so easy to shove in all their chips like they're supposed to. And I said, well, no, I'm going to do it, Nick. Don't worry. And of course, I didn't. So I'm home. Slowly my game deteriorated. I was back to playing the wrong way. And I was playing, and I was like, I had hardly any chips. I was 1 or 2 off from a final table, and I see him show up in. He sends me an instant message, and it's like, come on, you can do it. I'm like, oh, great, Nick is rooting for me. Then he goes, don't shove in your chips. You'll make that final table. And I go, oh, he's saying that I'm playing badly because I don't have that many chips. I'm trying to limp into the final table just to get some kind of a cash out, which is like the worst way to play. And I was like really embarrassed because I was like, this guy put in all this time, spent time teaching me how to do it. I wrote about it. I wrote that I'm a good poker player. And I called him back that night, and I said, okay, you know what? This is it. I'm never going to play like that again. And I didn't. And that was it. I wound up having about a 20% ROI on full tilt. I was playing admittedly low stakes. People would say to me, well, how much did you win? I don't know. I probably won like maybe $5,000 or $6,000 over the course of the year, but I didn't play a ton. And the stakes I played were low. I mean, I played the $6, $12, and $24 buy-in tournaments. And they say, oh, well, that's not that much money. I'd say, yeah, I agree it's not that much money, but I go, it's a hobby. I'm not doing this. This is not like my job. I go, what's your hobby? Golf? How much money do you make playing golf over the course of a year?
Well, you
lose money.
Not only that, you were winning, you said, at a 20% return on investment.
Yeah.
So, you were playing how many hours a week to win that 5,000 or 6,000? I mean, did you ever think of it in terms of an hourly win rate?
It was like, I mean, if you break it down to an hourly rate, it was not worth it. But I wasn't doing it. I mean, this is the point. I guess I wasn't doing it to make money. I was doing it because A, I enjoyed playing, and B, I liked the idea of being able to beat poker. If I wanted to make money, I would have, played way more hours, and I would have played way more tables at a time.
Right.
So I mean, but that's a different kind of commitment. I mean, I make a living writing. I wasn't really willing to be honest with you. I mean, it wasn't something I really wanted to do.
Yeah, but being a successful recreational player is a lot of our radio listeners are that in several different games.
Yeah, I'm sure there are many listeners who would love to go sign up to take this class.
Oh yeah, well, I don't think he stopped teaching basically because what he said is he goes, I'm basically teaching people because he was still playing. I mean, what this guy would do is he'd be able to play. I think he might have played as many as 20 or 25 tables at a time. So he basically said, I'm teaching, but he'd be playing for I think his average buy-in, his average tournament was I think $25. So he wasn't playing huge tournaments, so he was playing a lot of them. So he was getting a ton of volume, and playing really well. And he basically says, I'm teaching people to beat, to how to beat the exact games I play, and he basically just stopped doing it.
Well, and for the moment, if he's in this country, he's not doing it at all.
Well, he's not in this country. He's in Vancouver.
But he moved to Vancouver because of the law, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which, and I'm not speaking out of school here. I mean, he made this pretty public.
Yeah.
You talked about this was on Full Tilt. Full Tilt has been in the news a lot since April. Are you currently studying the Ponzi scheme, all these kind of things? How's that working?
Well, I'm planning to write something about it, and in fact, I will put this out there. If anybody has anything interesting to say, I would be interested in hearing from you. And I'll give. Can I give an email address?
Please do.
Yeah, my email address will be mkaplan Kaplan 2000 @AOL.com. If you have any interesting thoughts or any inside track or anything, I mean, I don't expect Ray Batar to drop me an email, but if anybody out there has something that might be of interest, I would definitely be interested in talking to you. And,
that probably doesn't mean I have $27,000 stuck there and they won't pay me. I mean, there are 10 million of those stories.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah, but to be honest, it's funny. I mean, I was at the World Series of Poker, and I was talking to the wife of one of the guys on Full Tilt, and she said, "Oh, it's really bad. People are coming up to my husband and saying, oh, you owe us money. You have our money." And she goes, "That's not true." I go, "It actually is true." I go, he may not have known it at the time. You give the person the benefit of the doubt because I don't think that all the Full Tilt players really knew what was going on. But on the other hand, I don't think they were asking that many questions either. But okay, so you didn't know it at the time, but after the fact, you did know it. You were taking money that wasn't yours to take.
Right.
I mean, so you kind of do have their money. I mean, there might not be a reasonable way of paying back those people, but you can't be surprised that people would come up to you and be annoyed and say, you stole my money, because you kind of did.
Yeah.
Let's try some other games for a while. The horse betting. There was some horse betting in Hong Kong.
Oh yeah, this was incredibly. In fact, I think this might have been the way I met Richard. I don't know if Richard remembers this or not. I was working on a story for Wired where I was going to go. No, I was working. This is the genesis. I went out to Hong Kong to do a story for Details. It's a really straightforward story on the world of horse racing. On Hong Kong horse racing.
Uh-huh.
And I met the guy who was the turf correspondent for the English language newspaper in Hong Kong. God, I don't remember this guy's name now, but I know that Richard knows him. And he put me on to a guy named Rod Duffesey. And Rod was a really interesting guy because he was an Australian who had a pretty big computer setup, and I didn't really know anything about this. I go to this guy Rod's house, meet with him. He goes, "Oh, come on by for racing." I come by, and this guy's got all these computers set up. He's got these, 3 Chinese women entering in bets on these remote betting systems. He's got a couple other guys working for him. And I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. And he's explained to me that it's all computerized. He's figured all this stuff out. He's got, how he, finds these edges. And that basically that he's using kind of Wall Street technology to model the races, and I'm like, wow! I go, this is really cool. So I wound up putting that in this detail story, which Details bought, and they shot it, and they never ran the it was a small part of a bigger story, and they never ran the story. So I was like, wow! But I was really fascinated by this whole thing, and while I was there, I found out about 2 other guys, Alan Woods and Bill Benter. And I was like, wow, those guys are those were like the real guys. Like Duffy was like kind of a second tier person, but I mean he was still making a ton of money. And
let me toot Richard's horn a little bit. Alan Woods was one of the people in the Gambling Wizards that
absolutely
Richard wrote about.
That's exactly right. And somewhere along the line, I was trying to get a hold of Bill Benter, and somebody had put me on to Richard and said Richard would have access to these guys. And I spoke with Richard, and I think the person put me on to Richard to kind of they wanted to get me off their back. And Richard Richard did the worst thing you could do to a journalist. Like I think he put me on to Alan Woods. Like, maybe thinking, oh yeah, he'll call Alan. Alan will say, no, I don't want to talk to you. And then this guy will say, okay, thanks. And that'll be the end of it. But of course, I hounded Alan endlessly. And then I managed to get Bill Benter's number somehow. But Bill was really interesting because he would always say, I don't want to be in your article. But then he'd have these long, incredible conversations with me, telling me all this great stuff. And he never said it was off the record, but he just said, I don't want to be in your article. But then he'd tell me all this stuff. So, of course, I'm taking notes while we're talking. Not doing anything that I'm not supposed to do. I mean, I realize he does not want to have any of this attributed to him. And Wired agrees to give me the assignment. I don't have an official go-ahead from either Bill or Alan Woods. And, one of those guys certainly has to sit down and do a real interview with me. Mm-hmm. And I happened to be going to Bali for a travel story I was doing. So I talked to my editor at Wired, and I said, how about if I reroute my trip to come back through Hong Kong, and I spend a few days there and try to get to these guys. And if I do, great. And if I don't, you'll pay my expenses and we'll just call it a day. And Wired was up for that. So I get to Hong Kong, and of course the first thing I do is I call Alan Woods, and I go, Alan, it's Michael Kaplan. He's like, oh, hi. I go, guess where I am? He goes, Hong Kong? I said, yes. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. And I said, I want to come see you. And he's like, well, maybe you can come tomorrow. And I'm like, wow, that would be great. He goes, call me tomorrow morning, and we'll figure it out. I'm like, wow, that's really nice. I'm like, I hang up. I'm like, boy, that was incredibly easy. Then I call Bill Benter. I go, Bill, it's Michael Kaplan. Guess where I am? And he's like, where? I go, Hong Kong. And he's like, I have to go. And he hung up, or something to that effect. It was basically like, I don't want to talk to you. And I called him a bunch of times, of course, while I was there, and he never came to the phone again. And but Alan met with me, and we had a great conversation. He was an incredibly engaging guy. He explained a lot of stuff to me, and I wound up, between Alan and all the stuff that Bill told me, I spoke with Bill. And that we worked out. I was able to use it without attributing anything to him. And kind of at the 11th hour, he said he would consider letting me attribute stuff to him if I would kind of go through with him, what I wanted to use, which I did. And then he said, no, you can't use it. So I don't know if that was just to find out what I was using, or it was, I don't know, whatever. But it was okay. I mean, I was happy with what I had. And the story came out, and it was pretty successful, and everybody was happy. And I stayed in touch with Alan. He seemed to like the article. And a few years later, he invited me down to come and spend a racing day with him. There's going to be a big triple trio day in Hong Kong, where the prize money was like in the multi-millions of dollars. And I came down to did a story on him for Cigar Aficionado. And I spent the racing day with him, watched him lose over $1 million, and he didn't bat an eye, didn't seem to care one bit. I think went up. I think I got there. He was up on his roof swimming. Then he came down, and he kind of was. At this point, he was living in the Philippines because he'd basically gotten run out of Hong Kong, and he lost the money, lost $1 million plus, and just kind of shrugged and said, "Well, if I have to lose that kind of money, I'm glad I did it in front of a journalist." And
we should point out, by the way, that of all the gamblers in the world, the professional horse racing guys make more money by far than any other form of gambling.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it was unbelievable, the amount of money. Well, and it was interesting too because we went out one night, and I met one of the. He was incredibly generous about letting people invest with him, which really impressed me because obviously he doesn't need outside investors. He had more money than he knew what to do with, and the people who invested with him at the beginning remained investors with him, which I found to be pretty impressive because he certainly didn't need that. In fact, I met one of the women who invested with him, and she was like an old bridge partner of his because I think he played really high-end bridge at one point. And, was it bridge or backgammon, Richard?
Well, he played both, but he represented Australia for in the bridge Olympiad.
Okay, so it was a bridge friend of his. It was this woman, and this was really nice, unassuming woman. You definitely would not think that she made, a chunk of her income out of Hong Kong horse racing, but sure enough, she did. And can I tell a slightly racy story without using any profanity or anything?
Sure. We're on the air, but
okay.
And it is AM radio, but yes.
So, yeah. So then we're kind of done with the story, and Alan again made no secrets about this. He was very, very interested, in having relationships with professional women, and he says to me, "Oh, would you like to come have dinner with some friends and I?" So I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds great." It was me, Alan, his daughter, this guy, the guy's wife, and we go for a really nice dinner at this Filipino restaurant. Then he goes, "Oh, we're going out for drinks after. Would you like to come?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds fine." He goes, "We're going to a girly bar." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds all right." So we go to, this bar, which is basically, a front for prostitution, and there's, a bunch of women, in their underwear dancing up on stage.
And he takes his daughter there.
Yeah, his daughter. She was like in her 20s, but she knew her dad. And the thing about Alan Woods that really impressed me was he was the most non-hypocritical person I've ever met. He was like this guy where if you didn't like it, fine, but he wasn't going to not be who he is, which not many people could do that. Certainly it doesn't hurt that he had a ton of money and that, he didn't have, his public image didn't really, couldn't hurt him. But, I was impressed by that, in a weird way. And so we go to this bar, and he goes to me, we're just hanging out, and he goes, of course everybody there knew him, and he goes, "Which girl do you like?" I'm like, "I don't know." I go, "I guess the tall one." And then he goes, "My daughter and I think you should go talk to her." And he points to this, one of these bar girls. So I go over, I'm talking to the woman, and I go, "Listen, I just want you to know I can't leave here with you." And she goes, "Why not? I'm too fat?" I go, No, you're not too fat." But I showed her my, my left hand. I have a wedding band. I go, "Married man." And she makes a motion of taking off the ring and putting it in her pocket, meaning you could take it off and you'll be okay. And I go, "No," I can't do that. So we talked for a few more minutes. I gave her a little bit of money, and I'm sure that Alan gave her a lot more than I did. And I went back to Alan Woods, and he goes, "What happened?" He was looked completely disgusted with me, and I go, I can't leave with her. I can't do that. And he was really annoyed, and I hung out for
all these Western morality here.
Yeah, I hung out for a little bit longer, and then I went back to my room, and I went and saw him the next day. I go, "You probably think I'm some kind of an idiot." He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "What, are you religious or something?"
So,
No. I go, "Alan, it's not that." I go, "I'm married." He goes, "Don't you know when you're out of the continent you live in, it doesn't really matter."
What happens in the Philippines stays in the Philippines.
Yeah, I don't know. I go, nobody told my wife about that rule.
So, and if you didn't tell her, she wouldn't know. All right, we got about 5 more minutes. If you had to pick you want to talk about NFL football in the Hilton, or you want to talk about blackjack, pick one. We got 5 minutes.
Let's talk about blackjack.
All right.
Okay.
So I learned to play. I learned to play. A guy named Rick Blaine had written a book on how to count cards, and he called me to see if I wanted to do a story about his book. I said I don't really do those kinds of stories. He said, how about if I teach you how to card count? And I said, and then you could write about that. I said, well, you may not be able to teach me, but if you can, I'll do it. So I went and got the card. He spent several months teaching me, and I became proficient. And then he said, "Oh, I'm involved in a team that's starting. Do you want to join a blackjack team?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you're going to have to try out." I'm like, "Okay." Practice. Tried out, made the team, and I spent a few years playing on a blackjack team, which was it was really fun. It was
just
a
big
experience.
Player team.
No, it was run a little bit differently. We basically would fly to Vegas, get money, and then just go out on our own and play. And it
sometimes
was
referred to as an every man for himself team.
well,
everybody's out playing as an individual.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like the whole this was in the wake of the Greeks, and I think the thinking was doing call-ins was not. You know what I mean? That the casinos were really wise to call-ins, and that doing that was not the greatest way to go. So it was an every man for himself team, and it was great for a while until it stopped being great, which is the way these things sometimes go. But I will say, over the course of more recently, I've learned that card counting is but it's certainly not the best. Having spent some time, playing with James Grosjean as a journalist, unfortunately not playing on his team, but watching him play, I realized that card counting is really like a pretty terrible way to try to make money from casinos.
Okay, but which is not to say that blackjack is a terrible way to make money from.
Blackjack's a great way if you're James Grosjean. Although I will say, I sat at the table with him in Atlantic City. He spotted almost every card, told me every optimal play, signaled me on every optimal play to make, and it was pretty unbelievable. I mean, seeing that. And I still lost money. I mean, this dealer was incredibly lucky. I was incredibly unlucky. And he goes,
every gambler has experienced that.
He goes, yeah. But, I mean, it was a shame. Like, the one chance of playing with James Grosjean and I lose money in a perfect situation. I mean, that was pretty sad. But, that's blackjack. But yeah, I mean, like when you play with him, you go, "Wow, this is like a whole other world," Or as he puts it, when he misses a card, he goes, "I don't know how people live like this."
Oh well. So we got lots of other stories to tell you. We're out of time today. Can we talk you into coming back in a couple months?
Absolutely.
All right. One of the things that impressed me a lot about you is one time you interviewed me for a Video Poker Story.
I remember that. I absolutely remember that.
I insisted on seeing the copy of it before it went out because numbers like 99.54%, when I'm just throwing them out there fast, if they're just numbers to you and they're easy to get wrong, and you honored that. And
well, I don't think I let you see it. I think I went through it with you on the phone.
Maybe, but I did review it, and
it's
somehow
slightly different. I think just to be clear, though, see, I would never do that. I would never send somebody. I think what we did is I did a fact check with you on the phone. I went through the story with you,
Maybe.
which is different than letting you see the story. That is something I would never do.
All right. Well, I still respected that you fact checked. I thought that was cool. So
Thank you.
Maybe we'll talk more about video poker writing next time you're on the air. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. This was a lot of fun.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
So, Munch, what did you learn from Michael Kaplan?
Well, I'm really glad that when he went and called Alan and Bill in Hong Kong, he didn't say, Munchkin said it was okay for me to to call you guys.
Well, good.
But
Had he said that, he probably would not have been invited tonight, huh?
Right. And the other thing, though, is it shows you what access. Having that job as the gambling writer for Cigar Aficionado has basically gotten him access to almost everybody in the gambling world. And because of that, I mean, he learned to become a winning poker player. He's learned to become a winning blackjack player. That's a great thing.
Yeah, and that's good. I'm wondering why they all so just using his initial is it's Michael K is his name and initial, and at Cigar Aficionado he replaced Michael K. So I don't know why they seem to have a fixation on that first name and initial at that magazine, but they do.
Right. I will say this. He is incredibly persistent. If he's after a story, he will call you and call you and call you. Which is probably a good thing for a writer. Yeah, and he's a very good writer. Yes. I really like it. By the way, I'm sure that people can find that Wired article online if they search the archives at Wired for that horse racing in Hong Kong. It was a very good article. Good. Let's talk about some of our sponsors. The Palms. The drawing this month is called the $78,000 Trick or Treat Moneybags drawing. Drawings are held 3 days in a row on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, starting at 7 o'clock. At each drawing, 5 names are selected. You have to be there to win, and they choose money bags. The money bags, there's 7 of them, and there's 5 people get to pick them, and the average is a little under $1,400. The high is $4,000, and the low is $500. So they don't let you rearrange them. No, you just you pick one in the order called, and you earn tickets all week long. So you can win 3 times in a row on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but you start earning tickets again the next Sunday night after the drawing. The play, earn, and win prizes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at the Palms have an Oktoberfest theme through tomorrow, which is the last Friday in the first half of the month. And the top prize, 32,000 points at Video Poker. You get to keep your points. But it's a $100 gift certificate at the Hofbrauhaus restaurant. Now, this restaurant's across the street from the Hard Rock, which makes it an unusual gift for the Palms. And this is a restaurant where you can sit at long picnic tables with drunken strangers, drinking beer, eat sausages, and sing German songs. If that's your thing, this is good. Other gifts you can win include a cuckoo clock, wine cooler bag, and a variety of German alcoholic beverages. The last 2 weeks of the month, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the PEW gifts will be handyman tools. So in case you need a new toolbox or something, that's what's going to be starting on Monday. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, earning 25 points, swiping your card for a gift. Frequently, the gifts are fairly worthless, but you can win up to $1,000. Or on Sundays, they're giving away televisions. So several people will win 15-inch televisions on Sunday. So that is the Palms. The next one I want to talk about is Silverton, and they're not a sponsor now. They were, and they hopefully they will be again. But they changed rules, and it goes into effect this coming Monday. So I want to put it out there so people have a chance to not get stung by it. The Silverton changed their slot club on April 1st of this year. Points you had at that time were called old points or comp points, and you could spend them on gift cards or rooms or various things. Several months ago, they announced that if you don't spend all your points by the middle of December, you're going to lose them. And then recently, as in yesterday, they officially announced that that as of next Monday, October 17th, the exchange rate on the gift cards is going to be cut by 50%. So however much it costs to get a $500 gift certificate to Starbucks, it's going to cost twice as much if you wait until Monday. So any of you who have old points at Silverton,
you want to be there between now and Monday, and I think you're going to lose half of them. The M Resort, what happens there depends on what day it is. Monday's a mystery multiplier day. Wednesday, seniors get a free slot tournament and various food discounts. Everybody can earn lotto tickets on Wednesdays, and Fridays they have hot seat drawings. So these three promotions, I mean, this is the third month in a row that they've had those 3 days of promotions. Now, many players at the M also are receiving incentive packages. So incentive packages seem to be based on your average play over the past year, and if you play more than that, they will give you some free play. So it seems to be, if you play double or triple the amount that you normally do, it's going to be an extra 0.3 to 0.4% in bonuses. So which is a way to, if you play it on single point days, of making it double points, or if you play on double point days, it's a way of making it triple points. If you play on triple point days, it's a way of making it fourple points, I guess. Okay, so if you play at the M enough, you will be getting those incentives. All right. Next week, our guest next week will be Ed Miller. Ed is a MIT graduate who did not play blackjack there, but we're going to have him on anyway. He's written a lot of poker books, and so we're going to be talking, and he has a new one coming out this week. So we're going to be talking about that one in particular. I've known him as a columnist in Card Player magazine, and recently he's also been posting about video poker on VP Free. So he's going to be our guest next week. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have Stanford Wong on talking about dice control. Wong has written a book on it. And probably we're going to be having Michael Shackelford on there as well. Michael Shackelford is kind of anti-dice control, but maybe Wong is too. So we shall see. And so those of you who want to learn to throw dice with an advantage, if it can be done, well, we're going to talk about that. And whether or not that's any more legal or illegal than the dice sliding that we talked about last week, where the people were arrested at the Wynn property.
Right.
All right. So what else we got?
Let's see. Well, coming up next month, I'd like to get Nelson Rose on. Again, I know he was your guest before I was with you.
Good. Nelson Rose is a lawyer. He's been our guest twice on the air. He writes a lot about internet gaming and legal issues on that respect. So it's not at all the same kind of legal issues that Bob Nersessian.
Yeah, exactly. But he, I want to speak to him because there's a lot of interest in Indian casinos and cruise ships, and I want to see if he has another perspective, about, and I also think that he may have more knowledge about how different states are different with their compacts with the tribes, so what states are safer for players than others, and
good. That's exactly his specialty, so he'd be good on that. Good. We're also going to be talking to Avery Cardoza in the next couple months. Avery runs a gambler's bookstore, among other things, and has written gambling books on, 10 or 20 different gambling subjects, including video poker. But he has a novel out called Lost in Vegas. And so we're going to be kind of talking, in that novel, which is going to be appealing to gamblers, so we're going to be talking to him about that novel.
Right. Also, Arnold Snyder has a new Blackjack book coming out. So it was originally slated for November 1st, but he tells me now that it's been delayed. But so as soon as we have a date on when the book will be out, which I think will still be next month, we'll have Arnold Snyder on as well.
Good. The last time Arnold was on, he gave me some of his Sudoku books on how to play Sudoku better, and I actually love those books. And so
they help you? Are you a better Sudoku player today than you were?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. There were a lot of things that I learned, and I was already pretty decent and could do the expert level ones, and now I can do more of the expert level ones because there were certain places I would get stuck in many puzzles that now I no longer get stuck in those places. There are still other puzzles where I get stuck, so maybe hopefully they'll come out with some more Sudoku books. A friend of mine, Annie, is she's a gambler here, and also she is an accountant, and for several months of the year she has a practice back in New Jersey where she helps people file income tax returns. And she tells me that in New York State, they're now totally changed the law on what you can deduct if you're a gambler, and you cannot deduct your losses against your winnings. Now, apparently this is only New York so far, but that's kind of...
I thought Connecticut was like that.
Possibly. Annie didn't mention that, and possibly she doesn't have any clients from Connecticut, and so I'm not sure how many listeners we have in New York, but that would change. That would be reason to change your residence or change your hobby.
Yeah.
Now, the last several ones of our broadcasts are now podcasts on. You can get them on iPhones and stuff. How does that work?
Well, we're in iTunes, so
iTunes.
You can go to iTunes and you can go to at richardmunchkin.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can subscribe to my blog, and that way, if you have an Android phone or another kind, it'll get delivered to you automatically on your phone. If you have an iPhone, you can do it through iTunes. And again, if you subscribe, it'll get delivered every week automatically to you.
Is this free?
Yes.
I can afford that.
All right.
All right, very good. So we got 30 seconds to go. So we didn't get into the dancers' answers next week, so I guess I should come up with 2 answers for next week.
Okay.